And hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Just Economy podcast, building a just economy $1, one vote at a time. Thank you for joining us again. I want a couple of reminders is that we have our summit for the Community Reinvestment Alliance of South Florida. We have our summit coming, and it will be February 24th, 2022 at the Signature Grand. Tickets go on sale November 15th, so look forward to getting your tickets. Get your early bird specials in as quickly as possible. So we'll be back in person again. We're going to beat this pandemic one way or the other, but we'll be back in person with our event at the Signature Grand. If you've been to it before, please tell your friends. It's a great event. We always have great speakers and great breakout sessions. So today on our podcast, the Just Economy podcast, our guest is Adrian Madriz. Full disclosure, Adrian is one of my board members for the Community Reinvestment Alliance of South Florida, and I would be remiss if I didn't do what I always do with Adrian, and that's employ Adrian to run for office. He's one of the most passionate community leaders that I know, especially being such a young man. And he's doing some great things in our community and trying to make our community better. So if you see Adrian Madriz and you see him walking the street, tell him, run for office one day, run for office one day, run for office one day. He always blows me off, but he knows that I'm really, really proud of all the great work that he's done. So again, today we have Adrian Madriz, the executive director at SMASH. Adrian's organization is doing some great things in the community and trying to bring the community to help build the just economy in a lot of different phases, and we're going to get to talk about those things today. So first of all, Adrian, please give us a little bit of your background and a little bit of the background and mission of the organization.
Absolutely. Thanks, Cornell. And I have to say, the prospect of running for office, I'm probably never going to do it, but you know what's even more exciting? Is that CRASF Summit that's coming up in February.
Yes, it is.
So we got to make sure everybody comes to that, because that's where the real ideas go to live.
I like that. I like that.
The county dais and the city dais is where they go to die.
I hear you.
Anyway, my name, Adrian Madriz, pronouns he, him, his. I'm the executive director of Struggle for Miami's Affordable and Sustainable Housing, also known as SMASH. And I've been a proud board member of CRASF now for, I think, 6 years. Yeah. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah.
It has. So tell us a little bit about SMASH.
SMASH is a community-driven developer of affordable housing, and we use the community land trust model to build power for housing justice in Miami. And right now, we're employing 5 different strategies, including the land trust, in order to build that power. And that includes tenant organizing. That includes the development of transformational tools so we can get people to adopt the belief and value that housing is a human right. That also includes the research and development into new kinds of housing construction technology led by a worker-owned cooperative. And it finally includes policy advocacy so that we can make sure that once we've built enough power, we got the policies that we need so that we can make housing a human right in Miami.
Well, let's talk about policy advocacy.
Absolutely.
One of the best ways I think is to get the community involved in their own in what's going on in their community, getting them to have a voice. I'm a firm believer that one thing we love to do is we love to have committees and concerns and tell people what it is they need, and not have them be a part of the process. So tell me how is SMASH leading in policy?
We want to make sure that any policies that we advocate for are, number one, driven by the people who are most affected by the crisis. And the people who are most affected by the affordable housing crisis, symptoms including slumlords, gentrification, rising rents, are Black and brown, low-income people living mostly, if we're talking about Miami, in the neighborhoods of Overtown, Liberty City, Little Haiti, and Little Havana. And it should be these folks that are getting to decide what exactly are the housing policies that we need going forward. And one of the things that those people keep telling us, the organization, and our organization is comprised of those people, is that we just need to have more affordable housing, and it needs to be deeper in terms of affordability. Much of the affordable housing that's built currently is not nearly affordable enough, and it needs to be community controlled. Because even if you build affordable housing And it's only affordable for, that year that you have that rent affordability, okay? Or as long as you have the voucher, or as long as you have that affordability covenant with the developer. Then eventually you're going to be back to square one. You're going to be living at the bequest of the actual owner of the actual land. And then that person's going to get to decide if you're going to have an affordable rent or if it's not going to be so affordable. And right now, given the hot market of Miami's economy, they have all the power in the world to raise the rent as high as they want, and they're always going to find somebody to pay it. So we, the residents, we're always at a disadvantage, and we need to get that under control.
So, and I totally agree with you on that. I think that affordable housing, as you stated so eloquently, is a human right. Just like the Constitution says, we have rights to free speech. Even some that some of the rights I do agree with, I don't agree with. But we have those rights, and we also should have the right to affordable housing. So tell me quickly, how do you mobilize the community to come in and be a voice for themselves?
We do a number of different things, and the main thing that we do is we organize tenants, and that's why it's the first strategy in our overall power building ecosystem. So we go into different neighborhoods like Liberty City, and we get the residents together and ask them, hey, what would you like to see in your neighborhood? If you could do anything for this neighborhood in the way that you would like and not in the way that the government or that corporate developers would like, what would that be? And of course, affordable housing is up there, but we're here on the Just Economy podcast. And so we have to talk about all the different kinds of tools that we now have at our disposal to make it so that we can have a just economy. So that doesn't just include community land trusts. It includes any kind of cooperative housing, any kind of cooperative business development, any kind of community-driven model that we can use to make sure that the wealth that is generated doesn't go into the hands of a few corporate private developers or a few corporate private speculators. It goes into the hands of the people back in that same community. And that's exactly what we have an opportunity to do when we gather the community together and we get them to control land. Building people power is absolutely important, but if you build people power without also having an agenda that includes land control, then you're always going to be one step behind, because you're going to build all of this power. You're going to get all of these people very excited about what the possibilities are, but then you're always, again, going to be at the mercy of who the landowners are. And landowners play the long game. They don't think about things in terms of 1 year and 2 years. They think about things in 5, 10, 30 years at a time. And we have to be just as smart, and we have to be just as long-term in terms of our visioning. And so until we get the land under our control, the reality is that we're going to be just constantly at a disadvantage. We're never going to really be able to do the things that we want the neighborhood to do in order to get that just economy and in order to get that affordable housing.
That's great insight, Adrian, and I like the part of getting the power to own the land. Sometimes it doesn't hit you until you actually see it, that the landowners are the ones who are, as you stated, playing the very long game here. They're looking 5, 10, 15 years down the road. So when we come back, we're going to talk about some of those tools that we use in order to secure the land and how the community can get involved in being a part of that.
Absolutely.
So we'll be right back with Adrian Madriz from Smash, and we're going to talk about land and how and the tools that we can use in order to own that land. Thank you. We'll be right back. Economy podcast, building a just economy, $1, one vote at a time. And again, we're with our guest, Adrian Madriz. I keep trying to say it like he says it because it sounds so cool when he says it. So I keep trying to say it how he says it. So please don't get too upset with me. So we were talking about land and how to control the land. So give us a few tools that we can use in order to help secure the land, so that the community is more involved in their own housing.
The main tool that we use is the community land trust model. And we love that model so much because it just has such a rich history in terms of how it's been used by people who are low income, black and brown, to be able to take over land, democratize it, and then use it for the community's benefit. It was invented by African American farmers in the 1960s. Who were, yes, African American farmers in the 1960s in Athens, Georgia, who were trying to get around racist land use and lending policies. And there were a lot of racist and land use lending and policies in the 1960s especially, right? And now, but like, you know, in Georgia at that time, you can imagine.
Yes.
So they got together, a group of black farmers basically, and said, we want to just get this land under our control. That way we can get the financing that we need to be able to make the farms that we need in order to be able to sustain ourselves. And they did that. It took a long time, but they were able to do that. And they established some of the first farming cooperatives, housing cooperatives, business cooperatives. And it was a beautiful community. It was called New Communities, Inc. And then the white racists of Georgia decided that black people were not going to be given the right to be able to develop their own housing and their own prosperity and ways to get out of poverty.
Power.
So, yep. So they decided to one night set the whole entire community on fire and then bulldoze all of the remains into a gigantic ditch. And that was the beginning and the end of the first community land trust in the United States of America. And so then they had to sue the Department of Agriculture, the Federal Department of Agriculture, because they were being extremely racist in the way that they were giving out farm subsidies. They were only giving it to white farmers, not to black farmers. And eventually they won that lawsuit, but it was like 40, 50 years later in the 2000s.
But you know, we're still going through that right now. The black farmers had to sue to be part of the American CARES Act.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
They had to sue.
100%. You know, and let me be clear. I'm talking about a particular time in racism, but that does not mean that racism is over, not by a long shot. White supremacy still reigns. So does patriarchy. So does classism. Classism, especially in the housing system.
Yes.
So, you know, but the good thing about this model is that even though, yes, it was destroyed, and yes, it was done by an act of hatred, the actual success that it was able to achieve while it was there was enough to inspire an entire movement around the country to do very similar things in their own communities. And so then you had community land trusts pop up in places like Boston and California. And one of the better known community land trusts called Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative is still alive today in Boston. And it started by basically taking over this extremely slum and blighted block called Dudley Street and putting all of that land into the community's control. They got the government to eminent domain the land and give it to this particular community.
Wow, the time that eminent domain is a good thing. Huh?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. In that particular instance, it was definitely a very good thing. But that's because they built this power in the community. With all of these different movements, it starts when one person decides, I've had enough of this BS.
Yeah.
You know, I am tired of this racism, patriarchy, capitalism, whatever. And we need to come together to figure out how to do this. And then they attract their followers, they identify other leaders, and then they come together and they build power.
So there's so many ways that we could help build this and land trust. I love the idea of community land trust. I think that it's important that if I'm going to live on this land, I get to determine what's on it. I get to determine and when I mean as a community. The community gets to determine what's on it, determine how it's used, how it's best used, and that it's long term. Earlier, you spoke about the landowners loving to use the long game and thinking into the future. Is that something that land trusts do? Is to help us determine what the future is going to be?
Absolutely. If I could just describe a little bit about the mechanics of how it works and why it's so cool. A land trust places land in the community's control. So that way there's a democratically elected nonprofit board that manages the land itself. But then let's say I, as an individual, or I, as a head of household, want to purchase a house on that land so that me and my family can live there. We can totally do that, but we have to do it according to the laws of the land. And who creates the laws of the land? The community does.
Okay.
So it detaches the housing on top from the land underneath. So that way you can buy the houses, or you can put buildings on there to do whatever you want. You can put supermarkets, clinics, schools, whatever. but then the land underneath stays in the community's control, and they are glued together by a 99-year ground lease. And you can renew that ground lease as many times as you'd like. So effectively, if you own the buildings, you have permanent access and utility of the land for as long as your heart desires. The catch is if you decide to sell. If you decide to sell your house, you have to do it according to the laws of the land. So there might be something like a resale formula. And that'll dictate how maybe in 10 years when the sale opportunity or the sale window opens up, what the price of the house is that you can sell it for. And it's not going to be the market rate. It's going to be well below the market rate.
Gotcha.
You're still going to make a profit. You're going to get more than what you actually put into the house. You know, and by the way, it was also a subsidized house, you know. So you're going to be getting affordable housing on the front end, and you're going to be able to, when you sell it, make a little bit of profit. So that way you can take it with you to your next home or whatever it is you decide to do. But the whole point of the land trust is that it encourages permanence. It encourages the idea that people have a commitment to their neighborhood, and that is the only way that we're going to stabilize neighborhoods and keep them affordable long term. If people are constantly using houses as piggy banks like they do now, refinancing every 2 and 3 years, flipping the house after a few light renovations after 5 years.
How often have we heard I got to pull some money out of my house?
Absolutely.
Send the kids to college or whatever, to take a trip, whatever the case may be.
Exactly. And then they're able to get these ridiculous margins, 25, 50, 100%, you know, after just a few years on the homes. What that does is now it makes it so that the next person who has to live there is now going to be paying all of that, right? And it's going to be significantly more expensive. That obviously makes it much more expensive for all of the other houses in the neighborhood, because now they are doing their comps and they're realizing, oh, I can sell my house for that much more. And a lot of people are very much of the belief and the value that, yeah, that's a good thing. You know, I should be able to sell my house and make triple what I spent on it, you know? And I think that if what your value is wealth creation, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I think that families absolutely deserve the opportunity to build wealth and power for themselves so that they can achieve prosperity. There's nothing wrong with that. What is wrong about it is you using your home as the primary method to do that. Homes used to be just that, homes. They used to be shelter. They weren't these extremely over-leveraged financial commodities that now basically prop up the entire American economy, especially in the state of Florida.
As we saw in 2008 with the mortgage crisis, as we saw that when the bankers were piling up these multiple homes and selling those packages of overextended homes over and over and over again, and then here we go, we have a collapse, and we're out of there. So. And the point that is that folks these days sell their house repeatedly, or they move repeatedly. Nobody stays in a house 40, 50 years anymore. That just doesn't happen anymore. You know, you grew up in that house, you own the house, and now you own, after your parents or pass away, then you own the house again. So when we come back, we're going to talk about getting the community involved in community land trust and how to go about seeing that come to fruition. And so thank you for joining again the Just Economy podcast with our guest today, Adrian Madriz. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to the Just Economy podcast, building a just economy, $1, one vote at a time. We welcome you back to our show today. We're speaking with Adrian Madriz from SMASH, the executive director. He's going over some things on how to build that just economy using the community, which is what I love, getting the community involved. So we were just talking about, Adrian, community land trust, and you went through the technical aspects of community land trust. So I know that SMASH started their own community land trust and is doing one in Liberty City. Yes. Correct?
Absolutely.
So please tell me, how did you get the community involved?
So that's a beautiful question. The way we got the community involved is really the way SMASH got started. And I need to tell you the story about one of the first residents that we started organizing. Her name is Porgy Town, but we like to call her Gigi. I think you might have met Gigi.
I have met
yes?
Gigi.
Okay. Did you know that when we met, she hated me? She did not like me at all because I was working as a housing organizer at the time for another organization called the Miami Worker Center. And I was knocking on doors in Liberty City, and everybody was telling me, we got to do something about these slumlords. The housing crisis is out of control, the gentrification. They were just running the full gamut. And I'll never forget going into this particular apartment where I saw some of the worst examples of poverty, just like visual poverty that I had ever seen. Rats, roaches, mold, mildew. I mean, the roach problem by itself was out of a horror movie.
I remember the video you used to show when you would go and speak.
Yep, that video of the rat in the toilet and the black mold that had completely taken over the tile in the bathroom. I mean, just really, like, if you've ever seen the movie Saw, the horror movie, it takes place in this really horrible looking, disgusting bathroom the entire movie. People in Miami are living in those kinds of places. This is where they have to bathe and clean themselves. It's really, really terrible. So Gigi happened to live in this particular building, but every single time I would knock on her door, she would just be like, I don't know what it is that you want, but you need to get out of my house. Get out of my house. Okay? And I'm just like, look, I think we could do something about the slumlord. He's clearly like subjecting all of you to terribleness and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I don't care. Okay? You need to get out because all you people ever do is come around here and say you're going to do something about the problem, but you never do anything about the problem, right? So this is...
Her frustration was palpable.
Very, very, very palpable, absolutely. And, her frustration was shared by many people in that community. She wasn't the only person we heard that from. She was very direct about it. Like, she was very direct and honest about it.
Sure.
But yeah, that's how we started. And then, what eventually happened is that the slumlord evicted her. Yep.
Wow.
Evicted her from her unit. Yep. And we organized against this particular slumlord. We had a campaign at the time to get it so that the city of Miami would sue the slumlord, and then they did, and then they placed those buildings under the control of the city of Miami. This is the first time that the city of Miami had ever taken such an aggressive measure against the private landlord. Yeah, in like 30, 40 years, basically. So,
but it took you guys being organized in the community in order to make that happen.
Exactly. Yes, we had to organize, and we had many tenants in that building that we were working with, and they all were parties to the lawsuit, and they helped us get media coverage of the events, and lots of activity was going on at that time. But Gigi, she got evicted, and one day we were there at the building again, and we were organizing tenants, and we were having a meeting, and then Gigi comes over to me. And she says, hey, I heard y'all were having a meeting. And I was like, yeah, but don't worry. We're not going to do it near your house. Okay? It's not going to be in the courtyard. She was sensitive about that,
huh?
We're going to do it as far away as possible. And she was like, no. I want to go to the meeting. She said that. And I was like, you want to come to our meeting for Smash? And she was like, yeah, the landlord put me out. And, the reality is that I 100% sympathize with everything that you're doing, but I had to treat you the way that I did because I was working as the assistant manager to the building.
Wow.
Yep.
And they still evicted her.
And they evicted her.
Manager?
Yeah. Ooh. Slumlords, absolutely. There's no honor amongst thieves whatsoever, right?
Yeah.
So that's what happened. And then she started coming to the meetings, and she eventually became a board member. And now Gigi, managed to find a new place to stay. She lives in a subsidized unit, is significantly better than that old roach and rat infested place that she lived in before. She runs her own business. It's called Gigi's Candles and Baskets. Okay.
Shout out to Gigi.
Shout out to Gigi. If you want a candle or a basket gift, this holiday season, just let us know, and we'll get that ordered for you. Okay, baskets starting at like $10. All right.
Oh, that's great.
I know, right? And she's a phenomenal entrepreneur. She's really taking it seriously, and that's how she's living. And she's the president of Smash now.
Really?
Yes.
That's what's called
Smash.
That's called what's called community involvement. Yeah. That's involved. That's called the community getting involved from her own circumstance.
Yep.
excuse me, from our own circumstances, seeing, okay, I can use my story, however terrible it is.
Yep.
I can use my story in order to bring others on board and get others involved in the community, because it takes us. It takes the whole village. We can't continue to sit on the side and say, okay, I voted, and that's the end of it.
Yep.
No. We need your voice. And Adrian and Smash have been doing some great work there. When something is wrong in the community, Adrian is leading the way down there at City Hall. When you say can't fight City Hall, that's not his mantra. Adrian's mantra is, okay, you can fight City Hall, you can win, and I'll keep fighting City Hall. That's all a part of it. So bringing the community in and getting that community involved, even after all that you have been to, all the yelling and screaming she did, but learning that, okay, I do have a voice, and I got to think that teaching people to have their voice is very, very difficult.
It can be. It very much can be. And, with Gigi especially, it wasn't an immediate thing, I think that obviously it didn't start in the best of places, our relationship.
Sure.
And I think that if we would have been any other organization, or if I would have been a different kind of person, that's probably where it would have ended. Right? But you have to really fall in love with these challenges in order to overcome them. And I don't mean love the challenges in the sense of like, I want people to go homeless. I want them to be living in slum conditions. But love it in the sense of like, always be thinking about how it is that we can overcome these kinds of challenges. And that's the commitment that I've made in order to really be an effective community leader, and to do something actually that's going to be different about these challenges. Because the reality is that slumlords are nothing new, rising rents are nothing new, gentrification, climate
going on
gentrification,
since this country was started.
None of that is new. So if we're going to do something to end it finally, we have to completely be different and very radical in terms of what we're going to be doing next. And that's exactly what we've committed ourselves to doing. We want to make it so that the models that we're pursuing now are truly community-led, that people like Gigi are actually given real levers of power. And so that way we can come up with the policies that are actually going to make a difference. And by the way, we have been able to create those policies. Just this year, during the pandemic, we had a lot of drama due to housing. If you followed any of the stuff that was going on, especially last year with the eviction moratoriums and how we were getting it extended, and how the ultra-conservative governor of the state of Florida and the conservative state legislature were very, very adamant that they did not want to do that, but then we forced them to have to do it like 5 different times. The people of the community led those efforts the entire time. When the residents of Hamilton on the Bay, which is a building that was getting a mass eviction this year after the collapse of the building in Surfside, they came together, they organized with us, and they fought at City Hall very consistently, and they eventually won a new law that basically makes about $5 million available for rental and legal assistance for anybody facing mass evictions in the city of Miami. So these are the kinds of things that we can achieve when you really dedicate yourself to these communities, and you really love these communities, and you love the city and the county.
I totally agree with you. We're going to talk about some things. We're going to talk about what you would do if you were in charge. We're going to talk about that when we come back, and we'll be right back with the Just Economy podcast with Adrian Madris. And welcome back, everyone, to the Just Economy podcast, building a just economy, $1 one vote at a time. Again, we're back with our guest today, Adrian Madris, who's the executive director of SMASH, and we're going to ask him for contact information here in a little bit. But a question, Adrian, that I ask all my guests, and this question is this. If you had the power, I just rained the power down on you right now and said, Mr. Madris, what would you change, and how would you change it? What would your answer be?
I would change the notion that the only people who deserve a home are the people who can afford it.
I like that answer.
Okay.
I like that answer because it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. That should be a God-given right, or at least a country-given right, that everyone should have affordable housing.
100%.
So how would you go about changing that notion?
I think right now, what we have, I mean, this notion comes from a very deep place, you know? And deep, I mean, I think that people literally feel it in their cells of their body, that this is the way that the world needs to go around. You know, I need to be able to have clean water and wake up in the morning in a clean bed. And I also need to be able to look at all of the people who I see that are homeless and unsheltered on the street and justify to myself why it is that they're unsheltered. And the best thing that I can come up with is, well, they clearly just didn't work hard enough, you know?
Yeah, that's our thing. You know, Martin Luther King once said that, you know, you want us to pull us up by our bootstraps, but that's hard to do when we have no boots.
It's 100% true, you know? And the reality is that in this country, we have completely adopted wholesale the value that you should have to work or starve, okay? And I think that when we continue to put property rights before human rights, don't be surprised when you have a human rights problem in your country, in your city, in your county. There is no right in Florida that is more under attack, no human right under more attack than the right to housing.
That's incredible.
And so how do we change something like that? Like, how do we get people to shift their complete orientation and their whole life philosophy that revolves around the worshiping at the altar of capitalism, to make it to a different kind of value system, one that says, no, actually, people come before profits. Housing is a human right, and everyone deserves a home.
Yes.
You know, these are completely different ideologies. And I believe that the way we get to that point is that you build power. You build relationships with different people that maybe you only see every Thanksgiving. You know?
Yeah.
And it's a very uncomfortable kind of thing to think about. The idea that you have to interact with people that you don't like or people that you disagree with so much and figure out a way to actually get along with them. Get along with them enough, at least, so that you can start to get them to see that you're not so crazy. That the things that you think about and the things that you value are not so radical at the end of the day.
Yes.
And that's exactly what Smash is going to be doing from now on. We're pursuing a strategy in which we're developing housing and cooperatives in different parts of Miami-Dade County so that we can start establishing these like bases in these different neighborhoods, and we can branch out from there and start building relationships with people who are very different, who definitely do not believe that housing is a human right, and that are essential to us getting to our new vision of a just housing system in Miami. We can't do it without those people because those are the people who vote.
Sure.
Those are the people who make policy. Those are the influencers. Those are the leaders of our community. You know, as terrible as it may seem, you know, that the people who say, for example, voted Joe Carroyo into power again after he beat his wife with a teapot, after he voted for adopt a homeless legislation, are the same people that we're going to have to figure out, hey, you know, how can we get on the same page about this?
How can we work with them? Because and that's all about building a coalition. A coalition is not meant to that everyone agrees on every single thing, but we all need to come to, I think, to the conclusion that housing is a right. Everyone deserves the opportunity to have housing. Everybody deserves the opportunity, period. We can't keep stepping on people and thinking that, okay, those people are not where I am, or those people are not a part of the community the way I am because they just don't want to be.
Right.
There is a such thing as keeping people down. There is a such thing as can't. There is a such a thing as the 3 words I hate more than anything, I didn't know. There are those things that are involved, and that helps push down those who are in the most need. I think, as you stated, the ones who vote, the ones who develop the land, the ones who charge extraordinary prices just to live here, is those folks have to be part of our coalition. We got to bring we got to rope those folks in. I'm all in favor of capitalism, but not at the extent of hurting the people. All in favor of it, but you can't have capitalism that hurts the people, because the people are capitalism. Without the people, without us renting, without us buying cars, buying food, spending the money that we spend, doing the work that we do, that further, without a coalition with those folks and the folks who are on the other side of it, we build this divide that we have now. Mm-hmm. And this divide just didn't start 4 years ago. This divide has been here for many, many, many years.
That's very true.
The have and the have-nots has been here for many, many years. I'm a firm believer in people. Rich people don't make money off of rich people. They make money off of poor people.
It's very true.
Because this would be the case if that wasn't true. When's the last time you saw a Bentley parked in a Walmart?
Yeah. Hey,
doesn't happen.
100%. Yep.
Doesn't happen. So the folks who are low to moderate income is the ones who really carry this country, and we appreciate organizations like you bringing that voice to those people and letting them know that, most importantly, letting them know that they have a voice. Because as you said, Gigi didn't know in your prior story. Gigi didn't really know that she had a voice. And right. She knows she has a voice because of Adrienne Madrice and other folks who are saying you can speak up. You can talk about what your living conditions are. You can do that. So Adrienne, do us a favor. Give us contact information for you and your organization.
Absolutely. So if folks want to get involved with SMASH, and we absolutely encourage folks to do so, join the fight for housing justice. Especially now that we have Give Miami Day coming up on November 18th, and we definitely appreciate a donation. You can go to smash.miami, our website, and you can get involved, make a donation, and support us on Give Miami Day. And if you want to do something about this terrible housing system that we have, the slumlords, the rising rents, the gentrification, the reality is that to change everything, we need everyone. And so everybody who's watching this right now, please do consider getting involved. This is one of the best things that you can do if you really care about your county, your city, your community, to make it so that we can finally have housing justice in Miami.
Thank you, Adrienne. Yeah. It's been such a pleasure. And like I said, I always talk to Adrienne about, especially when it comes to community activism. And again, when you see him walking the street, tell him, run, Adrienne, run. Run, Adrienne, run. Thank you so much for being a part of the Just Economy podcast, Adrienne. And a couple of reminders. One, don't forget our summit's coming up February 24, 2022 at the Signature Grand. We'll have some great speakers. We'll have some great breakout sessions. And we will talk about how to be innovative and bring some innovative ideas to changing our community and building a just economy in our state. So thank you very much again, Adrienne, and we greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate you. Keep on fighting the fight. And as we move at statewide expansion, believe me, you're going to be one of my examples as we move forward in our state. And we look forward to seeing you being a part of the Just Economy and building our Just Economy $1 one vote at a time. We encourage you to volunteer with the organizations who come on our show. And as we move forward, we're going to be inviting quite a few different organizations, causes to our podcast, so to bring to you and educate you on how to be a great part of this just economy, how to be a great part of our community, and to help uplift and build our community. Thank you for watching the Just Economy podcast, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you very much.